Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for attending another Red Cloud webinar. We hope everyone's keeping well. My name is Paulo Estrito, President of Red Cloud Securities. As has been the case for a number of our webinar series here, we're seeing a number of precious metals equities having a positive share price performance over the last couple of months as central banks continue to pump liquidity into the system. One of the companies that's benefited from this theme is Doré Copper Mining. As the world becomes a riskier place, another overarching theme is that a lot of funds are searching for politically safe jurisdictions such as Canada, Australia, and the United States, and Doré is in keeping with that theme. They have a development stage project in Quebec that's focused on a hub and spoke design that has several historic mines feeding or potentially feeding a central processing facility in Chibougamau, Quebec. And the most important thing here is they've got lots of infrastructure and a tremendous amount of exploration potential. The company's just recently closed on a financing that's going to help them accelerate their exploration project, and we're expecting lots of news over the course of the next 3 to 6 months. With me, I have Mr. Ernie Mass, President and CEO of Doré Copper. The format of the webinar is as follows. I'll be asking a poll question that I've already put up on the system here that'll allow for participants to kind of chime in terms of what they would like to see from the company or what their expectations are from the company. And then Ernie will go in and provide an update and introduction on Doré Copper, an overview of what they're doing, highlight the investment thesis that I think is very compelling here at these levels, and give an overarching corporate vision of what to expect from this company over the course of the next year or so. At the end, we'll be taking questions live, so please send your questions via the chat, and I'll try to get to as many of them as we can. As kind of a formal part of the process, I have to go into some forward-looking statements here. So there might be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I'd like to direct listeners to the cautionary notes contained within the corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities, I would highlight that the webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not consider the particular situations or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigation and seek their own professional advice before investing. Red Cloud Securities specifically, in the last 12 months preceding this webinar, Red Cloud has been retained under a service advisory agreement by the issuer. So I've posted the poll question, and now I will turn it over to Ernie at Doré Copper.
Thank you, Paulo. And welcome, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good afternoon, wherever you are. I'll be going through our corporate presentation, which you can also see on the web. As Paulo mentioned, we closed the financing today a little over $3 million, which is going to ensure that we continue to expand the resources with the current exploration program. Some forward-looking statements on our part. And the reasons to invest in the company are numerous. Three main reasons, though, are we've consolidated a large land package in the Chibougamau camp. We have lots of infrastructure, and we have lots of past producing mines, and as well some other deposits which continue to grow. We've got hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure already in place when we look at the mill, the road access, the power access, and the underground development in the mines. We have high-grade resources that are copper and gold, so probably two of the best commodities, and spread amongst different deposits. For instance, the Cedar Bay deposit, which we did a maiden resource, has 8.7 grams per ton gold and 1.9% copper. We increased the Corner Bay deposit previously to going public by 93%, and it's a plus 3% copper deposit. We have significant historical resources at Copper Rand that are plus 3% copper equivalent. And we've optioned the past producing Mann gold mine, which was a plus 8 gram per ton deposit. And so all this really supports a hub and spoke model where we can feed these mines to the centralized mill. And that's how the company or the assets operated in the past. We currently have a 40,000 meter drill program underway, targeting high-grade extensions at Corner Bay, Cedar Bay, and Joe Mann. These deposits are open in numerous directions. And what we plan on doing is, after the current drilling program, is we'll update a 43-101. And just a slight correction, that should be 35,000 meters. The company has experienced leadership and a strong balance sheet. Myself, I've worked in copper and gold and nickel as well over the last 30 years, working for Noranda, as well as Inmet Mining. Jean Tanguay, our general manager, was a previous operations manager at the site in Chibougamau. Andre Ringe, our exploration manager, was with Kinross as a senior geologist, working with large regional systems. On the board of directors, we've got a good mix of personnel, finance, and technical people distributed throughout America or the United States and Canada. So the capital structure as of August 1st, share price at $1 with only 28.9 million shares outstanding, and the company's quite tightly held. The largest shareholder is Ocean Partners with 26% of the shares, and they got their position because we essentially acquired the assets from them for 30% of our company. We have Orion and RCF, two American private equity firms, as large investors, and they in fact were our seed investors when we acquired these assets. Quebec funds are investing in the company too, and insiders have a strong position with about 20% of the company. So this map shows you the Chibougamau camp. This is located approximately 500 kilometers due north of Montreal. Good road access from Montreal, Quebec City, Val-d'Or. The Joe Mann deposit in the south of this image is 60 kilometers from the Copper Rand Mill, and you can see there's a series of other deposits in the area. We plan on focusing on 6 deposits and really focus on 3 of them, those being the Corner Bay mine, which is on the south end of Lake Chibougamau, where there's currently 3 million tons at 3.47% copper. This mine was actually 95% completed in 2008, which we've inherited. The Cedar Bay deposit was mined from 1958 to 1990. 3.9 million tons were mined at 1.6% copper and 3.2 grams gold. It stopped at the 670 meter level where the mine pinched out, and then we see the mine reopening at depth. We're currently drilling that area, and in that area we have a resource that's much higher grade in gold at 8.7 grams per ton. And then the southernmost deposit, the Joe Mann gold mine, produced 1.17 million ounces of gold at 8.16 grams per ton. It closed in 2007. In 2008, some holes were drilled about 150 meters vertically below the lowest mining level, and the grades there were pretty spectacular, being close to 1 ounce per ton, and we're currently following up on that. Other deposits to note: the Copper Rand mine was the largest mine in the camp, producing 14.9 million tons at 1.8% copper and 2.7 grams per ton gold. There were historical, proven, and probable reserves when the mine closed in 2008 of approximately 1.13 million tons. The Devlin Deposit is close to Corner Bay. It's a flat-lying deposit close to surface with 760,000 tons at 2.4% copper. And the Lac Doré Deposit shows a lot of promise with very high-grade gold, with high gold grades, high gold to copper ratio. But in this presentation, I'm really going to be focusing on Corner Bay, Cedar Bay, and Joe Mann, which are the 3 deposits that we're going to be doing the majority of our drilling at this year. When we say we're high grade, we can compare our deposits on the left-hand side with different copper-based deposits in North America, and we can see Doré Copper has some of the highest grade copper deposits. When we compare ourselves, we're looking here at the grades of Cedar Bay and Corner Bay. And then when we look at the gold grades, the Joe Mann historic gold grade is very similar to the higher grade reserves at Canadian mines. And the Cedar Bay resource grade is actually very similar to the higher grade resource grades at other Canadian mines. So we've got an advantage of grade, but on top of it, we have the advantage for a project of being very close to a mining center, being Chibougamau, Quebec. We have infrastructure in place. We're in Quebec, which is an excellent mining jurisdiction. And so we're anticipating low capital intensity. And plus we have excellent regional exploration potential. So when we put all these deposits together, we think we have a very strong package. This shows you an aerial of the location of the Copper Rand Mill in relation to the town of Chibougamau. It's a 10 to 15 minute drive from the town to the site. Very close, the Cedar Bay mine is actually just across the bay, or just across Lac Doré from the Copper Rand Mill, and the tailings facility is very close. The tailings facility has capacity of 8 million tons, should be enough for us to operate for numerous years. And the mill has a capacity of 2,700 tons a day. It was last operated in 2008. A little bit more about the town of Chibougamau. It's a town of 7,500 people, and it's really a mining jurisdiction. It was built as a mining town to support our mine. So when I go there, I meet with the mayor and I meet with other community leaders, and everyone has a relative who had worked in our mines at one point or another. The history of the site is actually pretty interesting. It started in the 1950s, and there were two companies running mines in the camp. One of them was Campbell Resources, and the other company started as Patino, went to Northgate, went to Western Mining, and then MSV. And then MSV and Campbell merged in 2001. And at the time of merger, they decided to focus on a project called Copper Rand 5000, which was the deeper part of Copper Rand. The project didn't perform as they anticipated, so they realized they needed to build a second mine. So they went ahead and started building the Corner Bay mine when the financial crisis hit in 2008, and the company wasn't able to meet its credit obligations. As a result, they declared a CCAA process. In 2011, the assets came out of CCAA and they were acquired by Ocean Partners and Nwinsco. That as a private entity weren't able to move the project forward very much, especially after the drop in gold prices and copper prices in 2013. And so we acquired the assets as a private group in 2017. In 2017 and 18, we did 19,000 meters of drilling. We completed a 43-101 on Corner Bay and Cedar Bay. And then in 2019, we acquired 100% of the assets, and we also went public. And in 2020, we announced the acquisition or the option for the Joe Mann property. And in 2020, we've been drilling and getting high-grade intercepts. We've had a few press releases come out this year with very high-grade intercepts at Corner Bay and at Cedar Bay. And we will continue to do so for the remainder of the year. So I'm going to talk about the deposits one by one now. The Corner Bay deposit shown here, as it was in 2008, when the mine was, as I said, 95% built. You can see the waste dumps. There's a portal on the right-hand side, a sedimentation pond, a warehouse, a gate, a maintenance shop. They took a 40,000-ton sample from Corner Bay and they processed it through the mill and got 94% copper recovery. This deposit has excellent expansion potential at depth and in various directions along strike. And we also have an option on 2,100 hectares around the Corner Bay deposit. So we really have a dominant land position around Corner Bay. The resources are approximately 3 million tons total at 3.47% copper, and there's about 0.27 grams per ton gold. The deposit is being drilled over this year, and we've had some excellent intercepts. You see a photo there of an intercept from earlier this year that graded 9.08% copper over 7 meters, and that intercept, if you can see my mouse, is in green, the upper greenmost intercept there. So those green dots represent what we've drilled this year. In addition, we've drilled a couple of more holes not shown on this image. And we're very confident we will increase the ore body significantly again and continue to maintain that plus 3% copper grade. The ore body is still open in numerous directions, plus there's the potential for a parallel vein. So we really think Corner Bay can grow into a very substantial ore body and really be the anchor for the company in terms of feed to the mill. The Cedar Bay deposit, this deposit is the one located about 5 kilometers from the mill. It operated from 1958 to 1990, producing 3.9 million tons, 1.63% copper, and 3.2 grams gold. Drilling after the mine closed indicated some very high-grade gold intercepts at depth, at approximately the same depth as the shaft, which goes down to 1,036 meters. These intercepts were between 15 and 20 grams per ton gold and a few percent copper. We've been drilling this deposit during the year. We've had some preliminary results come out, and we've had an intercept of 14.2% copper and 1.16 grams per ton gold. We rediscovered an area we weren't aware of, where we had an intercept of 2.25 meters at 4.9% copper and half a gram gold. And then we collared these holes at the adjacent Copper Cliff mine, and in the crown pillar of that mine, which is about 85 meters thick, we had an intercept of 13.6 grams per ton gold and 7.3% copper. That crown pillar, the bottom portion of it was mined in the 1950s, and it was a good surprise for us to see that there's such high grade left at surface there. We continue to drill this deposit, and we expect more good results, and we expect the resources to grow. So currently the resources are pretty small at 360,000 tons, but very good grade at 8.6 grams per ton gold. And we do expect that resource to grow as we continue drilling this deposit. And the Mann Deposit, where we currently have a drill at Mann in operation, and our immediate plans at Mann are to drill the main zone and follow up on 2 holes drilled in 2008. These are EE189 and EE188. Those holes assayed about 1 ounce per ton, over 3 meters and over 1.8 meters, and they follow the plunge of one of the higher grade ore shoots in that deposit. So we're very confident that we should hit mineralization in our follow-up. We're currently drilling 2 holes, and each hole will get a wedge or 2. And with that, we should be able to calculate a maiden 43-101 resource at Mann when we add all the historical intercepts that are in the area. There is also a west zone that needs to be drilled. This west zone was partially mined, but there's still a resource there, a historical resource there over 7 grams per ton. And again, with a couple of holes and wedges, we should be able to add to that. And then also at Mann, there's been some magnetic surveys done, and a parallel structure about 250 meters to the south has been identified that we plan on drilling as well. So we expect good news flow from Cedar Bay, Corner Bay, and Mann. The Mann Deposit doesn't figure into our immediate plans, but we do know there are resources there. The measured and indicated resources are about 1.7 million tons at 1.6% copper and 2.9 grams per ton gold. But our mining plans have this coming into the life of mine plan later on, because we can probably mine Copper from Cedar Bay, and we would look to work at Cedar Bay first and then go to Copper. But there's still definitely potential here. And then the Devlin Deposit, again, gives us good near surface optionality on copper with a grade of 2.4% and about 740,000 tons of material. It has already been accessed by a ramp, and there's actually some expansion potential at Devlin adjacent to it, offset by a fault that we're going to be testing up in the winter. And then the Lac Doré Deposit. This deposit's very close to the tailings facility in the mill. And our understanding of the Lac Doré camp is that the Lac Doré fault represents a 1.6 kilometer offset of deposits in the district. And Lac Doré is probably the offset of Cedar Bay. makes sense in that we're getting very high gold to copper ratios there, as we do get in some of the zones at Cedar Bay. And this will be on our radar for drilling in the future as well. So we definitely don't have a lack of opportunity. With so many different deposits, we've really decided to choose three, those being Corner Bay, Cedar Bay, and Joe Mann, and look to have those start up the restart of the camp. Stakeholder engagement is very important to us, and we're dealing with the Cree Nation based in Oje-Bougamau. The Cree Nation are very experienced with resources. We're currently working with Cree JV companies on drilling and also as core technicians. Quebec offers a lot of support for junior mining companies like ourselves, and actually bigger mining companies once they start getting into development, and that's something that we will count on as we go forward. So for instance, Investissement Québec are very active in investing in companies, and we've participated in some of the conferences that they've put on, especially they put on an annual conference in New York. The town of Chibougamau has been very supportive. There's also numerous Quebec investment funds, and as I mentioned, a couple of them have already invested in us. We plan on having a couple of more join in the near future. From an environmental point of view, the company really doesn't have any liabilities. The water that's leaving the tailings area, we sample it on a weekly basis, and the quality of the water is excellent. And the Minister of Environment in Quebec visits the site twice a year, and their most recent visit in May, they had no observations. So essentially, there's really not many, we don't really have any environmental liabilities at this point. So our next steps is we'll be doing 35,000 meters of drilling for 2020 and early 21, and this should lead to an update in the resources and a PEA in 2021. Most of the drilling will be at Corner Bay, Cedar Bay, and Joe Mann. The drilling, because the deposits are structurally controlled, it's not that difficult for us to determine where to drill. We just follow the deposits down plunge and along strike and down dip, depending on the deposit. And we've been very successful to date in, with our hit rate. So we have a hit rate at a very high percentage. And then in 2021, after we do update our 43-101 resources, we'll make a decision to do a PEA. And if we feel we have enough resources for a PEA, we shall go ahead and do that. And once the PEA is done, essentially we're setting in stone, or we're setting in motion the restart of the camp. And then we're going to get into more detailed studies in terms of more detailed mine sequencing, really look at the mill rehabilitation, what's required there, working on the permitting process, working on the IBA with the First Nations, and looking at what type of exploration is needed to be done to support that. So finally, we have a large land package in the prolific Lac Doré Chibougamau camp. We also have a large land package in the Joe Mann area. We have excellent infrastructure, a 2,700 ton per day mill, tailings facility, underground infrastructure already in place, and 12 or 365 day a year access to our sites. The deposits have all the potential to increase the resources, and we already have 43-101 compliant copper gold resources. And those resources are all high grade, and we're well funded with our drill program. So what you see here is some core. On the left is a 9% over 7 meter core that we drilled earlier this year from Corner Bay. In the middle is the 13 gram per ton, 7% copper core from the crown pillar at the Copper Cliff deposit. And on the right is a 15 gram per ton intercept from the Cedar Bay deposit that we drilled in 2018. So that's the presentation. On the corporate website, you can see the presentation, and in the appendix, there's a lot more details regarding the geology of the camp, the exact resources at all the deposits, as well as some maps. So I'll turn it to you, Paolo.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Yeah, that was a great summary of the work that you guys are doing and the amount of news flow that shareholders or potential shareholders should be expecting over the next little while. I've got a couple of questions here, but before I go into the questions, just a quick reminder that the poll question is still out. I'll post the results shortly thereafter. So first question is your share price and volume spiked back at the end of July, early August, when you guys announced that you guys would be doing some work over at Joe Mann. And maybe you can elaborate in terms of why you think that happened, and when do you expect the first batch of results from Joe Mann to kind of hit the market?
Yeah, we think that happened because of the name. In some ways, Doré copper, people tend not to think of Doré as gold, and our production mix may very well be 50-50 gold copper. And I think that was a reminder to the market that we actually own, or we have an option on, one of the highest grade historical gold mines in Canada with a lot of potential. And I think the market realized that, oh, we've got good copper assets here, but there's also good gold assets here. And we should start to see results from Joe Mann, I think, in about a couple of months.
Okay. I got a question here from Eric. How are the rock mechanics at depth at the Joe Mann mine?
We're going to be drilling the mine. Historically, I think those mechanics were good. One of the keys with rock mechanics is not to try and mine the deposit faster than it should be mined. And so our expectations are to mine that deposit at 300 to 500 tons a day and no more than that. And with that, we should be able to space the stopes and put in the proper backfill to avoid any major rock mechanic issues. Also, it's a relatively narrow vein mine, and the deposit is subvertical, so that tends to lend itself to safe operation because we're not going to be opening up these huge stopes.
Okay, follow-up question. What sets Doré copper apart, and why do you think it makes it an attractive investment opportunity?
So there's numerous reasons for that. I think the biggest reason is we're high-grade gold and we're high-grade copper, and you can't find that combination with any other company. And then on top of it, we're in the province of Quebec, and on top of it, I'll layer that we're close to the town of Chibougamau, so we're not an isolated site. And on top of that, I'm going to layer the fact that we already have a lot of infrastructure in place. And on top of that, I'll layer that we've got a good support and a good team in place. So I think we've got a lot of things going for us.
Okay. Follow-up question here from Eric. What are the royalties? And I think he is implying the Joe Mann mine, but maybe you want to elaborate if there's more.
Yeah, Joe Mann has a royalty of 2%. There's no royalty on Corner Bay. There's no royalty on Cedar Bay. There's no royalty on Copper Rand. And Devlin has a royalty, I think it's a 10% net profit interest on Devlin.
Okay. So we talked about the drilling and when you expect the drilling. You touched on resource updates. Can you remind us on the timing of that?
Yeah, we expect with the current financing, we should be drilling with a break over the Christmas holidays. We should be drilling up until March, and then at which point we'll do resource updates at Corner Bay, at Cedar Bay, and at Joe Mann, and that will represent kind of a maiden 43-101 at Joe Mann, and an update where we'll be increasing the resources significantly at Corner Bay, and also increasing resources at Cedar Bay.
Okay, we've got a follow-up statement from Eric saying, "Oh, good, no crazy royalties." Follow-up question.
Or a stream.
What's that?
I said, or a stream.
Yes. So what permits are required for you to go back into the mines to drill and or restart the mines?
Yeah, so for surface drilling, the only permits you need are a forestry permit, which we've gotten about 10 of them so far since we restarted, so that's not an issue. To dewater the mine and start drilling from underground, we need, they call it a non-assujettissement, which is obviously a French term for a non-objection, and that's a relatively easy permit to get. To commence operations again, we need to do an environmental impact assessment. And given that the sites are already all impacted, that should be relatively straightforward. And we plan on getting the non-assujettissement first, and then after that, you just move into a mine operating permit. The mill and the tailings facility were permitted when they closed in 2008. So we need to evaluate whether we attempt to grandfather those permits or whether we just roll everything into one package and say this is our restart plan. In Quebec, you have to put up 50% of your closure cost in the first year before you start operating, and then you put up 25% in the 1-year anniversary and 25% on the 2-year anniversary. We already have about $4 to $5 million in a bond for the closure, and so that's going to be added as a credit to the closure plan. So we're not anticipating permitting to be a huge issue for the company going forward.
Okay. Question from Taylor: are there 1 or 2 drills turning at Joe Mann right now?
So we have 1 drill turning, and the second drill should be there in about a week.
Okay, and the timeline of drilling. Sorry, there's so many questions coming in. It's moving the questions down. So sorry. Timeline of drilling for the remainder of the year. What's next after the Joe Mann? Any impact from COVID on getting assays back from the lab? So basically, you were saying you're expecting something within the next 4 to 6 weeks from Joe Mann. You answered earlier, but you may want to address that specifically.
So I'd say 2 months, so about 6 weeks. But on Joe Mann, we plan on being at Joe Mann for a couple of months. We may, if we just, I think we're probably going to release the results from each deposit we drill at Joe Mann instead of, or each of the areas we drill at Joe Mann, and we're planning on drilling 3 areas. And then after that, we'll probably go back to Corner Bay, and we have, I guess, 3 different areas that we know by drilling we're going to add resources. So we're going to start in those 3 areas. And then as we still have to get some results back from Cedar Bay, and based on the results, we may go back to Cedar Bay. And in addition, we've got a couple of targets that are more greenfield exploration targets that could represent a discovery, and we may do a couple of holes in those types of targets. So really, we're really in an enviable situation of having so many targets, and so we've had to prioritize. I think we've done a good job doing so, and you'll be able to see with the news flow that the results should speak for themselves.
And just to clarify, the bond was 4.5 million, right?
The bond was, it's about 4.5 million that's in place.
Okay, and then any impact on COVID in terms of assays coming back from the lab?
No, we haven't had any impact from COVID from assays. If you recall, Quebec declared exploration non-essential when the COVID pandemic started up, and drilling was suspended from March 24th to May 12th. And so we had 7 weeks of stoppage of drilling, and we commenced a little bit after the restart of drilling. But there's no impact. There's no effective impact of COVID now, other than the fact that we've put in additional or new safety and hygiene measures to make sure that there isn't any transmission at the site or at the drill locations.
Question from Steve: is the mill legacy infrastructure, or is it new/refurbished in the 2000s? So maybe you can give a little bit of color to Steve on that.
Yeah, so the mill stopped operating in 2008. And so, they, at that point, it was fully functional in 2008. As we go to restart the mill, it's not going to be a flip of the switch. We're going to have to go in and do some work, mainly on the control systems. But structurally, the foundation, the structure is sound. But we'll have to do some work on, I'd say, electricals and control systems, and maybe we change a couple of pieces of equipment.
Okay. Question from Victor: is there any open pit potential?
No.
Okay. Follow up, and this is more of a statement, I believe. Chibougamau, Chape, and the other First Nations group must be welcoming any advancements. Is that correct? That must have value. I'm not sure if that's a question, more of a statement, probably.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. The Cree are a very I'd call them, they're good businessmen, and they welcome companies that come into the district and do things the right way, and we intend to do so. So I think we're in a very good environment with the First Nations, and also the land boundaries are very defined. So it's not like we're dealing with 4 or 5 different First Nations groups and figuring out who gets what. We're really only dealing with one group, and that makes dealing with First Nations in Quebec, or in this part of Quebec, much easier than the rest of Canada.
Okay. What's your drilling cost in this part of the world? It's got to be one of the lowest in Canada or in the North America.
The drilling cost will depend on the depth of the drilling, and some of our drilling is relatively deep. But I would say all in, our drilling cost is about $130 a meter.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Canadian.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we can use this as a point to close the polls here, and then before I give you the floor to kind of wrap things up. So I'm going to end the poll here. And like last time, I think people are going to be a little bit shocked at what the answers are. So the poll question, if you haven't answered already, I encourage you to do so. If you're buying shares in Doré Copper Mining, are you doing so for copper exploration exposure, gold exploration exposure, copper production potential, gold production potential? And so here I'm going to end the poll here, and you'll be surprised, I think, at what the overall results are. So 43% of respondents are buying or potentially considering buying Doré for the copper exploration potential. 25% for the gold exploration potential. Only 18% for the copper production potential, and only 12% for the gold production potential, which is actually surprising given the appetite for gold in this market. So thank you for those that answered the poll, and I hope you found the answers as interesting as I did. So I'll pass it over to Ernie if you kind of just want to summarize what to kind of expect over the short term now that you got some cash in your jeans, and the drilling that you should be expecting over the next little while, and sum up the presentation.
Yes. Oh, thanks, Paolo. So we did this flow-through raise to ensure we had continuity of our drill program that we're currently executing. We will have results following up on our drilling earlier this year at Corner Bay and Cedar Bay, and we'll have new results at Joe Mann. And we expect all of those results to result in very splashy intercepts in terms of copper grades, in terms of gold grades, and in terms of significantly or improving our resource estimates, which we plan on updating in the first part of next year.
Thank you, Ernie. Really appreciate you taking the time and giving us an update. I know there's that this is kind of a period of time where people are taking holidays. So for those of you who made the effort to be on today's call, I would suggest to you that you're kind of getting early information in terms of what Ernie's doing post his recent financing. So thanks to everybody for attending, and thank you, Ernie. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paolo, and thanks again for everyone for taking the time to hear our story.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.